Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am continuing my series about the official end of NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, and just like basically unpacking my very complicated emotions about, everything, like reviewing my history and happy memories with the organization, hopes for the future, what I miss about it, what I will not be missing about it, those sorts of things. And all of these videos are based off of blog posts which I have written through June 2025, and this one was published on the 25th of June about my Nano writing experiences. And don't worry, this is not going to be some like boring, just wrote laundry list. This is the project I wrote for this Nano, and this is what I worked on for July camp and April camp and these years, and this was my word count, and these are the synopses, and here I'm going to read a short excerpt and things like that. No, it's just going to be like a general summary, I think, pretty much of the main Nanos in November, not really going into so much the camp months, and just like my general like experiences, my highs and my lows, that sort of thing, just like happily and not sometimes not so happily, unfortunately, towards the end, just looking back on everything I accomplished and all sorts of other things. And I do have a couple of prior blog posts I might turn into videos for this series by extension as well. Some kind of like bad writing habits I inadvertently, picked up during Nano and just couldn't get out of them. Like, permanent editor mode was sinking in, and I was like forgetting how to just write without like the internal editor kicking in. So anyway, I participated in NaNoWriMo a grand total of 14 times. 11 of them officially, my lucky number, and won 13 of those times, another of my lucky numbers, because I'm oppositional defiant and like screw those people who are hysterically, superstitiously terrified of the number 13. Oh no, scary number. I also did Camp Nano every April and July from 2015 till 2023. I opted not to do either of the camp months in the final year. During those years, I wrote almost 2 million words, which, thank God, were migrated over to TrackBear before Kilby took down the Nano website. And I really do feel like sorry for people who like had no idea all of this was going down, or that like the website was about to, go dark. It went like sometime in the last few days of May. I don't know exactly when, but I just feel so sorry for those people who, because they only did it in November, maybe they just like were totally out of the loop regarding the scandals because they're not terminally online like some of these other keyboard activists are in this, and they just like lost all of their data, their word count, synopses, things like that. And particularly for the people in the young writers program, the teenagers, I didn't know this, they had to like type their projects on the website, so unless they had it saved on their own computers, or like they wrote it by hand or did a printout or something, they lost like even more than the rest of us adults who were participating on the main site. So it's just like a horrible situation all around. But thankfully I managed to save my own project word counts and stuff. So that was not erased forever. My earliest Nano years were the most productive and inspired, when everything seemed so fresh, new, and exciting. Somewhere along the way, that intense spark faded, and many of my projects in the later years were a struggle to scrounge up enough words for. It's as though my fingers froze on the keyboard the moment midnight struck on November, and I forgot how to let words flow naturally. That's just like something I think I have pretty much gotten over the worst of that bad habit I got into. But when you've had something like learned bad writing habits or any other kind of habit for like long enough, you can't just realize, oh, this is why I get into the bad habit, and I know it's wrong, and this is what I should be doing instead, or I miss when I used to do this. I'm working hard on making, a serious effort. Like each week I'm doing a little more a month or day or whatever to get back to how I used to be. But you can't just like flip a switch and, okay, now I realize the error. Now I know why I did wrong and why I want to get back. I'm working on it. You can't just like go from like the way you were to the way you are now to the way you used to be that was better in the past overnight. It's just like not an overnight transition. The 3 years I did Nano unofficially, the books wrote me instead of the other way around, particularly since I wasn't keeping track of how many words I wrote each day. When I later retroactively, honestly added those projects to the site, I got their word counts from the chapters written in November. My first official Nano in 2014 was amazing. That is such a happy memory, like every bit of that month. I got within spitting distance of 75K by the end, with a strong start on a book which had been on indefinite hiatus for many years. And that was actually, well, I never finished it either of the times. I had begun it previously, but this was like the third version of a first draft. I wouldn't even know what like the word count was of the first. It was just like very like slim, and it was basically just like taken from like the first part, what became part one of the book, and then the second time it got a little bit further, but not too much. So basically, this was like, for all intents and purposes, the real first draft, even though it was like the third attempt at like writing a first draft. And that was and Alexei lived an alternative history, which I have a prior video about, like just story behind the story, my like thought process and the history of like writing and being inspired for that book, etc. I ended up writing it very out of order, barring most of part 4. But the most important thing was racking up those words. NaNo 2015, I'm getting ahead of myself, was somewhat of a disappointment, only hitting 71K when I had so hoped to beat my 2014 total. I pulled an exhausting all-day writing marathon on the final day with 7,616 words and felt ready to start dry heaving by the end. This became a pattern every November afterwards, pushing myself to crank out as many words as possible on day 30 and making myself sick in the process. As soon as midnight struck on December, I crashed with a huge release of stress. Like I could literally feel it, like, just leaving my body. Oh, thank God that's over. I no longer have that huge expectation, commitment, word quota to meet. I can just like relax and like go back and edit the crap I wrote in the last 10 minutes of NaNo, or just like not even write anything for the next week or month or whatever. Just like take some time off, like relax already. As the minutes and seconds crept closer towards that closing bell, I devolved into typing rambling clutter and nonsense I knew would immediately be deleted from the non-NaNo file or subjected to serious editing. In that mad dash, I often created many typos because, basically the whole thing of NaNo, I mean, I know you should have like strove to rise above that, not just typed like crap for the sake of, oh, I have to meet 50K. You should be like careful and like deliberate about it. But at the same time, it is like a word count challenge. So your conscious and deliberate effort of making all of those words. And so, I'm so close to like 60K. Oh, maybe I can get up to just over 61K by the closing bell. Type. And I'm just not even paying attention to, I mean, I know the words I'm intending to type, but I'm just like so frantically typing like way above my like normal words per minute typing speed. I'm just like typos and spelling errors all over the place, and I'm going to go back and correct them when the closing bell rings. 2016 was even more disappointing, all of 65K, and not achieving the 50K minimum till the 25th. I thought perhaps this was because I was continuing the project from last year, in which I didn't finish the first draft of until 2024. Oh, thank God that's finally over, even though I'm now working on some new material for the third draft, not starting with a fresh news story. Because of the difficult circumstances visited upon me in 2017, being away from my writing group back home, far from my familiar surroundings, and not having much privacy to write unless I went to a library, my writing mojo was plunged into the toilet. I felt the only way I could squeak out a win were if I wrote as a NaNo rebel. I worked on both a fiction project, another story that had long been on hiatus, which I falsely believed was destined to be permanently shelved, and I should probably do a future video about that project. It's a book and diary form. I first, I got the idea for the character, and I was like 5 years old, probably. Like, it just stayed with her through the time I was maybe 12, 13, maybe like 12 was when I put it on hiatus. And I really thought for like 25 years or whatever, okay, this character, this story wasn't meant to be. And then I got a huge surprise. Oh, I'm thinking about this so much. Maybe I should do it. And then I finally decided 2017, yeah, let's go back to this character. But that would be a fun, great video to do. And anyway, I was also working on creative nonfiction, mostly in the form of blog posts, writing my 12-part series on the jazz singer on its 90th birthday, including related topics about early sound cinema, the transition from silence to talkies, which it actually was a transition. So many people have this false, like, myth idea. Oh, the jazz singer came out, and then instantly, overnight, the entire world, it was talking. Like, that would be, even if everyone said, yeah, talking cinema is the way future, we don't want silence anymore. It would have been, like, technologically and it's so impossible on so many other levels to just like do it like monetarily, financially. You couldn't just like flip overnight. So it was a gradual transition over several years. And also that series also included a post about the end of the silent era, and as I just mentioned, debunking myths. And so that was exactly what I needed to regain my writing confidence. Al Jolson's incredible charisma and energy descended upon me when I most needed something to inspire me and pull me out of my writer's block. I'm so thankful to his, I guess, spirit for inspiring me when I so needed it. And I do think I got like at least 50K of that NaNo total came from the fiction project instead of the creative nonfiction, which I was kind of worried about over relying on the creative nonfiction. But as the years went on, I unfortunately began, well, unfortunately for me anyway, from what I like had been like hoping in my track record in the past, I began relying more and more heavily on the creative nonfiction, like handwritten journal entries and blog posts, and sometimes even like Instagram posts or like long YouTube comments I left for people. And so I just felt like that's kind of cheating, even though like I was a NaNo rebel. I wasn't pretending it was only the project, but I just came to feel like I'm just relying too heavily on the creative nonfiction, and sometimes that's like more than half of the NaNo word count total. So, again, like a lesson learned from NaNo. That was like another bad habit I got into writing wise. 2018 and 2019 were my best years ever. I love those years, finally cracking the 100K mark. Though my April Camp 2015 project reached 125K, that was largely in the form of editing existing words. In that project, it was also working on two different books. Well, I didn't pretend it was only one book. I had like a slash through the title, like the very first, like the very next. Those aren't those books' titles anymore, but those were like the working titles for over 25 years. So anyway, it was like primarily editing through the existing words of two different books and adding a little bit of new material to them. So that's not really, I wouldn't really, I mean, yeah, technically it did get over 100K, but like, in the form of writing new words. No, that was not like nearly close to like 100K of brand new words it was editing. Even then, I felt like I were failing myself in the 2018 and 2019 by not reaching even higher and pushing myself to write even more. Like I knew I was capable of like really, really high word counts. And I know like some people like watching or like reading a blog post or whatever might think, oh, you're humble bragging, you're just patting yourself on the back, and people do struggle to reach like 50K. Yeah, that was me in the last few years, many times. I'm just saying by my own standards of what I am capable of, my own like established history as a writer, it felt like a personal failure for me because I wasn't reaching as high as I knew I was capable of. And if like your like MO, your established writing history, you get like 50K or 60 or 70 or whatever, that's cool for you. That's your own like personal standard you're measuring yourself against. And I have never said like, oh, you suck if you couldn't even get 50K bare minimum, or you suck if you were not an overachiever, or you suck if you just stared at the computer screen or your notebook the entire month and barely squeaked out like 20,000 words, or didn't even get to 100. No, we all have our own writing standards. I just feel like that, as I sound like a broken record, but my own personal writing standards, I was just, not living up to what I knew I was capable of. 2019 felt like a personal failure to attain what I knew I was capable of. Yeah, I was just saying that, getting ahead of myself. Since I went from nearly 131K to 101K, this was a competition with myself, not with other people. Then 2020 hit. We all know what that was all about. And the NaNo board not only canceled all in-person write-ins, but encouraged people to squeal if they discovered privately arranged write-ins. I mean, I don't know if like YouTube would get me in trouble if I said that, but that kind of reminds me of like something like totalitarian governments do, like the Soviet Union or the countries behind the Iron Curtain, like back in the day. Like that's not something good to model. Oh, tell us all if Janie and Jack and Susie and like Rebecca are doing a private write-in. Oh, it's so terrible. Oh, they're going to give the whole world COVID. Oh no, they're going to get banned from the NaNo website and all their records are going to get wiped. Like so much of the public response to COVID, it was just so really badly mismanaged, and a lot of us like never like it really like did a number on my own mental health and my like writing like output, what I had been capable of to that point. And like it just took, again, as I was saying, with like the learning bad writing habits and you don't recover overnight, like a lot of the impact COVID had on like people. We're not recovering from that overnight in terms of like the mental health and the writing and losing connection with like other people and sometimes like losing jobs and all sorts of things like that. It's just a long, slow like recovery process. And so in those years, it was all on Discord, which didn't feel like a true writing community where we could form meaningful connections with other participants. I was really ashamed of my 2020 performance, in which I only scored 53K, lagged behind until day 25, and didn't reach 50K till the last day. At one point, I was a full 7,000 words below par, and about half of my word count came from creative nonfiction. Again, I was like failing myself. I know many people would think, oh, that's awesome. Oh, and yeah, I technically still did overachieve. Oh, yeah, you got 50K, you won, but it just didn't feel like I lived up to the best of what I knew very well I was capable of. The lack of in-person write-ins and resulting feelings of depression and isolation caused this. Still, at least that was a relative success compared to what was destined to come down the pike. 2021 was even worse, barely eking out 50K at 10 minutes to midnight on the last day. I mean, it was completely humiliating. After being, I just said that, after being an overachiever for my entire time as a Rimo, that was humiliating. Never before had I been the type of writer who falls so far behind and can't even make minimum par most days. It's like I weren't even trying, just let myself fall behind immediately and deliberately avoided writing for much of the day. Again, this is, I just pretty sure like my cyclical depression, which was like triggered by the COVID lockdown, that was playing a huge part in just not feeling like motivated or wanting to write like or do many of the other things I had been doing before like at all. I had lost not only my home writing group and in-person write-ins with anyone, but my cherished established routines. And I love a routine. I really don't like when my routines get interrupted and I have to learn a whole new routine. 2022 ended up a great redemption. I mean, it was low by my standards, but it was, considering the last 2 years, it was awesome. But it still wasn't anywhere close to what I had been capable of in my glory years. I also continued relying on creative nonfiction as a safety cushion to pad out my total word count. In those last years, a huge percentage of my totals came from that and not my fiction projects. And I have like the screenshots of all my daily word count charts and like the final charts. I love collecting like screenshots, just my own writing history for my personal records to just look back on and illustrate blog posts I've written about so I could definitely see the illustration of like the highs and the humiliating lows and like starting to get back to what was and like measuring like each day's word count and like, oh, it's so far below. That chart is humiliating. In 2023, I returned to my roots by handwriting my main project, and I have a video about that as well, why I decided to do handwriting. Having to hand count almost everything and put those totals through a lorem ipsum generator was quite tedious, which I had also done prior for like journal entries I was counting as some of the creative nonfiction. But writing a draft by hand again, after so long of only typing, forced me out of the permanent editor mode, which had so hindered me in recent years. 2023 should have stayed my final year with such personally meaningful projects for July camp and November. Again, I believe I obviously definitely went into the project I did for that NaNo, but I think I might have mentioned the July camp project in at least one prior video. That's a long off-topic story why they were so personally meaningful to me and like mental health and stuff. But I decided, probably against my own better judgment, to soldier through despite everything and participate in 2024. And I will also be having a video about why I kept participating despite the scandals. Like I did sit out the last 2 camp months in 2024, but I decided just do the main event in November, and kind of almost felt like a mistake from the jump. But anyway, that video will talk about it more in detail. That was a disaster almost from the jump, a bitter final memory of an event that had once brought me so much joy and fun. This once beloved, iconic institution of the writing community deserved a far more dignified end. I hope Kilby, the interim director, her real name is Kim, I'm not going to reveal her like real last name, even though like I know it, but like she should not be using her pen name on tax documents and like trying to hide her real identity. And so anyway, I hope Kilby never works in leadership again. This is apparently at least the second organization she has like ruined, and now she's hiding out at her second home in the Andes Mountains in like South America. So like, she basically screwed over the entire writing community. So anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Leave me a comment down below if you enjoyed this video and watched all the way through to the end, letting me know like your opinions about Nano. Do you have happy memories? What were your highs and your lows? Did you ever like keep like a collection of screenshots documenting your daily word counts and your final charts and other like cute fun things on the Nano website like I do? Just like, let me know all sorts of things you have about, all sorts of opinions and memories and whatever you have about Nano. So thanks for watching. I will see you guys again very soon. Bye.